Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Brandon Schreiner with Revive Chiropractic and Max Living, and I want to personally thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk about prevention and performance. Chances are, if you're watching this, you're probably coming from some type of a gym or fitness facility, and I want to just let you know I'm going to be walking through 5 steps for prevention and performance. And so before I get started, I just want you to know a little bit about me. And how, I get very passionate about what I do. I'm a chiropractor. My wife and I are both chiropractors. We've got one of the largest natural healthcare clinics in the country. And so I became very, very passionate about health when my health was struggling. And so as I pull up a picture of my wife and my kids here, I was a Division I wrestler. So woke up one morning, couldn't feel my hands. I talk a lot about health because I thought I was healthy. And if you're kind of in a gym atmosphere, a lot of people that are working out and they feel great, they look great, they think they're healthy. And I was that person. I was 4.5% body fat. And I woke up one morning and I couldn't feel my hands. I had been wrestling since I was 6 years old, lifting weights, doing all the things I thought were good. And I had neck surgery. They fused my spine together with a titanium plate, had debilitating migraine headaches after that, got more numbing and tingling. And chiropractic and these essentials and these health essentials I'm going to talk about literally changed my life. So today, if I can do anything for you, I just want to empower you and let you know that these work, that health is simple. It's just not easy. But if you take these steps and you do these things, I'm telling you, you're going to probably be one of the healthier people on the planet whenever you take these steps and actually apply them. So as you can see to the right, I was one of the top collegiate wrestlers, but then also I was one of the top CrossFit athletes in the country at one point in time. I qualified for the CrossFit regionals from 2011 and 2014. I went to the CrossFit Games in 2013 with CrossFit New Albany. And just fitness and performance has been a part of my life for a long time. I'm a chiropractor. I'm also a certified chiropractic wellness practitioner, very extensive nutrition and lifestyle detoxification certification. My wife is a metabolics expert, so we deal with chronic disease reversal, gut issues, autism and cancer and diabetes and chronic illness, heart disease. So, when it comes to performance, I always like to tell people that really, when you're only focusing on performance, your health can be neglected. But if you're going to focus on something, focus on your health, because if you focus on your health, you're always going to perform better, right? So, what's the goal of today? The goal of today is to do one thing. Like I said, let's focus on health and not performance, because if I focus on health, I'm automatically going to perform well, right? By setting health goals, realistic goals, and helping you achieve these goals in the most effective and efficient way. Right, so I'm a pretty black and white. It has to make sense, logical, and so when it comes to the 5 things that we can be doing, I'm going to be walking you through those and why it is that we get amazing results here in the clinic, and you can do the same exact thing at home watching this video. So that's the goal. Now, number 1, as I go through the 5 steps, number 1 is mindset or managing stress levels. Right, so one of the things that I see in the gym a lot of times when it comes to injury is just overtraining, right? So, I've got 3 boys under the age of 5. I run a very, very busy and amazing clinic that I love very much. But if I don't watch it, sometimes my stress levels can get high. I'm in that sympathetic fight or flight response where blood sugar could go all over the place. My heart rate could go up. I begin to become inflamed if I'm not watching how I'm managing the stress, right? And I find that especially when you're kind of doing these high intensity interval training type of training methodologies, sometimes it can push people over the edge. It can push really healthy people over the edge and create things like thyroid issues and gut issues and, adrenal fatigue. And it's not that those things are bad. It just means that we've got to learn to manage stress levels. So, the brain is a complex organ that, sends messages down the spinal cord. So your central nervous system controls everything. But your brain also is directly connected with your gut. And so I find that a lot of people sometimes have skin issues. They've got digestive system problems. Like I talked to an athlete, just the other day who hasn't had a solid bowel movement in probably 2 years. That's a problem. But, they're 6% body fat and they can, deadlift 500 pounds. But the reality is if we don't fix those things internally, that could lead to big issues later on down the road. So what are some things that we can do to manage stress? Number one is know how to listen to your body, right? So your body is the best doctor in the world, right? As a dad with four boys, when my kids are telling me something, I listen because their bodies are very smart. The best doctor lives inside you. And so if you're just tired and fatigued and your body is taxed, it might be time to kind of step back and say, it's time to do a rest day. It's time to maybe look a little bit more into my recovery. A lot of people that are going 4, 5, 6 days a week in the gym, but they're not doing a whole lot to recover. They're eating like junk. They're not sleeping well. They're drinking and consuming maybe a lot of alcohol. Their supplementation's not very good. They're not really doing any kind of preventative kind of procedures like chiropractic and and stretching and mobility and things like that. Then the body begins to break down, not because the body was born sick and weak, but because the body's like, look, I can't take this anymore. Like, I'm so stressed all the time, and then you stress me out even more, and now I'm going to begin to attack myself. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we call an autoimmune condition. So we've got to manage stress levels, listen to your body. Number two is journal, right? So sometimes the emotional, one of my friends who's a marriage counselor who counsels my wife and I, he says that sometimes you just need to empty your emotional jug, right? So writing down 3 things you're thankful for, write down 3 things that you got accomplished before you go to bed, and turn your cell phone off, right? Facebook is probably one of the toxic things, social media, there's so many different opinions, and really it's somebody else's highlight reel. And so you want to make sure that we kind of take the screen time away and get a good restful night's sleep. Sometimes it's good to have some blue blockers on as you're on the computer, because that can actually affect your cortisol levels. And so those are some things that you can begin to do, because sleep is huge when it comes to stress. If you can't sleep, then you can't detoxify your brain. And ladies and gentlemen, if you can't detoxify your brain, that's called Alzheimer's and dementia, okay? So we've got to manage our stress. Number 2, this is a big one, and I'll tell you, if you click the link below, I've got a free nutrition guide for you that's got some really, really awesome, like, what are good fats? What are good proteins? What are good carbohydrates? What are good oils? High quality foods, nutrient dense foods. I do not have 2 hours to go over the nitty gritty on nutrition. I am going to spend a little bit more time on this topic than any other topic today. But I'll tell you, the key is that people are consuming a lot of food, but it's not nutrient dense food. Someone's like, well, I eat paleo, but I'm still eating, hormone sprayed meat and bacon, and I'm not consuming a lot of vegetables. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're eating paleo and your diet is mostly meat, that's not paleo, right? Most of the Paleolithic diet was mainly foliage. It was mainly vegetables. And then it was meat as well, of course. It was no dairy. It was no grains. But the quality is crucial here. Like, our Paleolithic ancestors weren't consuming feedlot grains. They were consuming wild animals, right? So we've got to think the nutrient quality of our food is huge. We consume more calories than any other country in the world. We've got the least amount of nutrient dense food and healthy people, okay? So we've got to look at that. The other thing here is, energy metabolism. So I want to talk about, why it is that eating a higher fat, lower sugar diet is not just good for your health. And let's start there first, because health, but also good for your performance, right? So I'm not saying keto, I'm not saying, paleo, whatever. I'm just saying a good healthy fats in a higher amount is a lot better than a high protein, low fat diet, right? Because if I consume too much protein, that actually turns into sugar inside my body through a process called gluconeogenesis, which actually can be stored as fat, right? And then whenever I stop eating, that particular diet or nutrition plan, I put the weight all back on, and it mostly comes in the form of water. The best example I can give you is like a bodybuilder, right? They're really big, and then whenever they suck down and they blow back up again, like, that's not really health. Like, we want to think about how do we sustain this kind of lifestyle. And a diet that's high in fat, super good for the brain. It's super good for the cell. So you can see on this picture, we've got a cell, and I want to kind of blow this up for you here for a second. This cell is super important because this cell is important for pretty much every single function in the body, right? So you've got 2 different forms of nutrient, or you've got 2 different forms of energy. You've got glycolysis through glucose or sugar, or you've got the Krebs cycle through beta oxidation and fat and ketones. So I'll tell you, one is very inefficient and one is very efficient. Glycolysis, through glucose metabolism is a very, very inefficient way to create energy, because you need a lot of it, and it's for very short periods of time, versus I use higher amounts of fat and very low amounts of sugar to actually create beta oxidation. And it's a very, very good energy source, which is what we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is an amazing way to be able to get energy. And it doesn't cost as much. It doesn't take as much energy to do that. Okay, so I want to break this down for you. This is the best analogy I can give. This is what I call the tree analogy. So upper right corner, you see a forest full of trees, right? So in those trees are various different types of trees, right? Big trees, small trees, saplings. And those are what I'm going to use as energy, right? So, you know, if you take those really, really small saplings and you cut them up and you break them up and you use them as kindling to start a fire, the fire is going to start really quickly, okay? It's going to burn really hot. But then after a few minutes, it's going to go away because it's not a very long-term energy source. So you're going to get very quick amounts of energy, and then you're going to plummet, okay? And then you're going to feel like you're going to have to do that throughout the day. Versus, I'm going to take some bigger trees, right? So I'm going to take some, you know, bigger trees. I'm going to saw them up with a chainsaw, and then I'm going to take those logs and put them on the fire. And they may not burn as hot as quickly, but when they catch, man, they're going to burn, and they're going to burn hot for a longer period of time. It's a way more efficient way to manage energy metabolism. And the cool thing about, you know, fatty acid oxidation or ketosis is that, yes, they burn really, really well and for longer periods of time. But through ketosis or ketones, they directly cross the blood-brain barrier, right? So imagine, hey, I've taken these logs out of the forest, I've cut them down, and then I brought them into my home, and I directly put them into the fireplace, and I begin to heat my home, AKA my house, which is why individuals who have a higher fat, lower sugar diet do really, really well with seizures. They do really, really well with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. They recover well. They have lower amounts of inflammation, right? So, and here's the deal: is your liver, you know, produces cholesterol. 70% of the cholesterol in your body is produced by your liver. 30% is produced by your by your diet. And so fat's not necessarily bad. Cholesterol is not necessarily bad, but it's the inflammation and the sugar that causes the oxidation of cholesterol, and for your blood sugar and for your cholesterol and your blood pressure to go up. So it's not, fat doesn't make us fat, right? It's really the sugar and the complex carbohydrates and too much protein that will make us fat. So a way more efficient way to do that. Let's talk about movement for a second. So movement is like exercise physiology is my background, my bachelor's in exercise physiology at Ohio University, probably well known for one of the top exercise physiology programs in the country. Learned a lot of really great stuff there. It was kind of a huge foundation for me when I went to chiropractic school. But you know, one of the biggest things I see in the gym, you know, whether or not if I go to, you know, Lifetime Fitness, or if I go to CrossFit, or I go to Shred, or I go to, you know, whatever it is that it might be, I always see individuals that are moving well and individuals that move very poorly, right? And so I'll tell you that, you know, whether it be CrossFit or whatever, I think CrossFit sometimes gets a bad rap. CrossFit doesn't hurt people. Bad coaching and people hurt people, right? CrossFit was never designed to hurt people. You know, same with Planet Fitness. Like, hey, the weights are there. They're free for anybody to use, but it's the person that takes those weights and moves poorly. It's their fault, right? And so we've got to think about taking a step back for a second and moving well, okay? And I think it's important to know that we've got a process in our body called neuroplasticity, right? So your brain records and remembers everything. So if you go into a workout system or a workout program and you're like, man, I'm gung-ho, I want to work out, I got to lose this weight, I want six-pack abs. A lot of times we forget about moving well, and we just want to move quickly. We want to get through all the foundational stuff first. We don't really want to learn how to do it quickly and well. And we kind of skip that part, and we just say, hey, just throw me into the classes. Like, throw me in there. I just got to get this weight off. But I'm telling you, take a step back for a second and learn how to move well. In this picture is a prime example of what we call a muted hip, which is where, hey, my pelvis is sucked forward, my head's 6 feet in front of my body because I'm at a computer for 8 hours a day. And then I go to the gym and I start lifting weights, and my back hurts and my neck hurts, and I start having headaches, and my shoulders start to be a problem because I have these movement faults, right? But I'm actually creating these neuroplastic pathways that are telling my brain, hey, this is okay. And if I don't know how to turn those neuroplastic pathways off, and I don't retrain the brain with good, proper coaching and movement, I can actually create kinks in the armor. I can create movement patterns. I can create injury. And these injuries become disc issues. These injuries become torn rotator cuffs. Hip replacements, knee replacements. But it wasn't because of fitness. It was because we're moving wrong. And a lot of that has to do, with the fact that we just never really had a strong, stable, neutral spine, which is what I'm going to talk about here. So take a step back for a second, slow down, and learn how to move these well. If you go to our website at revivechiro.com, revivechiro.com, I actually break down some just basic movement standards, right? And so that website is there for you. You can kind of learn how to kind of do things correctly. I just kind of broken down the movements and the modifications for those movements, from the squat, the push-up, the press, the pull-up, all the sit-up, all these different things that we can do and do them well. Because when we do them well, we build a good foundation, then we can move fast and we don't have to worry about injury. The other thing is, how do I recover? I find that when I go into the gym, it's just like, hey, I just need a protein shake and I need a recovery drink and I got to have a pre-workout and all this stuff. I'll be honest with you, like my pre-workout's coffee. And I'm not saying there's not good pre-workouts out there. I'm just saying that for me, a cup of black coffee with some coconut oil and some stevia, I get some medium chain triglycerides, I get a little bit of caffeine, I'm ready to go. But post-workout is massive, right? I mean, why put all this effort into, pushing yourself and trying to get as maximum amount of strength and lean muscle tissue and energy and the benefits of exercise, all to be ruined because of a toxic protein powder that's fed grains and all kinds of hormones and antibiotics. I mean, it is really interesting to me how bad some of these products are. I mean, rule of thumb, if it says stay away from children, or if you wouldn't give it to your child or a pregnant mother, then probably you shouldn't take it either. But I mean, things like, think about the quality of the food that we're putting into our bodies, or the protein versus the quantity. You would actually need less protein if it's higher quality, right? Whole food supplements. I mean, I can't tell you where to go or where not to go. And I'm telling you, there's good supplements and there's bad supplements, right? So, at the end of this, I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to call, and schedule a 15-minute consult with me or one of our doctors. Like, we would love to walk you through, like, what classifies something as a good whole food supplement. Like, I'll just tell you right away, if you're taking a fish oil or an omega-3 fatty acid and it's not from a grass or a wild-caught fish source, then you're just basically, you have really expensive urine. If your protein powder, if it doesn't say grass-fed cows, then you're basically eating an inflammatory animal that's going to create inflammation and toxicity in you, right? And so, that kind of leads me to, it can't be about a diet, right? It can't be about this diet. It can't be about this just, my macros and whatever. I'm not really looking at the quality. It's got to be a lifestyle, right? This has got to be something that your kids look at you and say, man, I love when mommy and daddy are working out. The whole family's doing it. That's the beauty of fitness, is that it's a lifestyle. And don't forget that if you're focusing on health and not performance, sometimes you take a step back and look at some of these supplements that you're taking. You're like, wow, is this healthy for my body? Versus, is this going to help me perform better? There's a lot of protein powders. There's a lot of things out there that will help me perform better as an athlete and make me look better that are not good for me, okay? And so we want to make sure that we're doing that. So I always tell patients, look, a good, healthy, grass-fed protein powder, a good omega-3 fatty acid, right? A good probiotic, some vitamin D3, maybe a good organic multivitamin. Really, those are the only things that the human being really would need that they couldn't get through their diet alone, right? So, and we can go over more of that on your 15-minute phone consultation. So, I want to talk about chiropractic, and I don't want to talk about chiropractic because I'm a chiropractor, but I want you to understand that, when it comes to, moving and moving well, I'll kind of go back to that whole metered hip analogy. I find that individuals are having problems with their shoulders and their hips and their knees, not because they have shoulder, hip, or knee problems, but because they have spine problems, right? So you think about this, I mean, there's a position that your spine needs to be in that we call normal, right? And normal is straight from the front and curved from the side. Whenever the spine is straight from the front, my hips are level. And so if my hips aren't level, then I create some obliquity and I create hip issues, then it will create knee issues and ankle issues. And so, man, if I'm just popping ibuprofen, 600, 800 milligrams, or if I'm, stretching and I'm mobilizing to work on the muscle, but I'm not actually getting the spine to twist back into the position it needs to be. And that's where the adjustment comes in and the rehabilitation. Think of chiropractic as kind of like an orthodontist, but for the spine, right? You just can't go to your orthodontist, once a month and expect your teeth to change. So in our clinic, we do what we call, corrective care chiropractic, which is, we warm the spine up, we adjust the spine, but then we rehabilitate the spine to bring it back to normal. And what we find is that when we do that and we give you home exercise, that's where that neuroplasticity comes in. I'm changing the brain and I'm changing the way the body perceives as normal. We're bringing the head back so that way the body can begin to heal. And, interesting part is that what's the one system in the body that controls all the healing of all the other systems? And that's the big question. And it's your nervous system, right? Your nervous system controls and coordinates everything. So for your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, your digestive system to work, like that signal has to go from your brain uninterrupted. And ladies and gentlemen, if your spine is a mess, then that signal is interrupted. Your body is in a state of dis-ease. Like it's not functioning at 100% potential. And so that's going to affect maybe your sinuses. It could affect your digestive system. It could affect your ability to be able to have energy. It could cause headaches. And I don't know about you, but I don't think anybody likes to go to the gym with headaches or back pain. And so I find that these things inhibit an individual from being able to move well. And so, the best analogy that I can give you, I love this because this is Dr. Kelly Starrett. Most individuals know him in kind of the CrossFit or the PT world. He wrote the book, The Supple Leopard. And I'm quoting him because I really don't need to say anything else, because everybody kind of looks at him as like the god of mobility, which he's very, very good at what he does. But I think it's very interesting that he starts at spine first, right? So the spine is the chassis of your body's two primary engines, your hips and your shoulders, which is where most people are having issues. If you've got spine issues, you're going to have hip and shoulder issues most likely. And so it doesn't make any sense to fix your shoulders without fixing your spine. Otherwise, you're just treating the symptom, right? Each functional movement begins and ends at the spine, so your spine has to be properly aligned, aka the only profession that I know of in the world right now that can actually properly realign a spine is chiropractic, right? I've got physical therapists in my office that they don't really realign spines. Like they don't really taught how to do that. Manipulation is different than an adjustment. So, when it isn't, it will weaken the body's force production. So you think of a race car. So there's two race cars here. You've got a twisted chassis or a twisted frame, and then you got a neutral chassis or a high performance running engine. I don't know about you, but I don't want to drive the twisted chassis car because it's not going to run right. It's going to pull. It's going to create compensation. I'm going to get horrible gas mileage versus this high performance engine. Your body was meant and created to be a high performance engine, but these things become inhibited when the chassis of the spine is twisted, and that's where chiropractic comes in. So, this is a perfect example. Your spine needs to have curves from the sides, so you can kind of see in this picture that these curves are important for force production and vectors. So, whenever the curves are put there innately, they're there to be able to protect for gravity. And one of the biggest things that I find is this forward head posture. Why? We're texting at a computer. We're at a computer all day long. Like our kids are on their cell phones and on iPads and all these different things. We get in a car accident and it whips our head forward and we're just stressed. We go into this kind of fight or flight, sympathetic fight or flight mode. And then I go to the gym and I start pressing things over my head, or I try to start squatting. When your head shifts forward like this, the entire body begins to shift. Like your spine, your thoracic spine begins to shift. This is where headaches can happen. This is where sinus issues can happen. This is where your shoulders go into internal rotation. And every time I try to lift anything over my head, I get shoulder kinks and things like that. So really, when you think about it, the only logical solution to fix this guy's shoulder pain would be to pull the head back. It wouldn't make any sense for me to try to fix this guy's shoulders without pulling his head back. And so that's where we take, chiropractic, and we take mobilization and things we can do with lacrosse balls and foam rollers and massage therapy and all these really cool things. And then we combine that with nutrition and detoxification and moving well. And then we've got a recipe for health and wellness, not just for 6 months for, membership or for a challenge, but really for the rest of our life. Like I really believe that the human being was meant to move well, not for a short period of time, but we're high performance engines. Like we should be moving well into our 70s, 80s, 90s years old, right? I mean, we should be able to run and play with our great grandkids. But what do you see most individuals looking like from the side? Their heads way far forward, And we just don't do anything about that. We're in a tech world. We're in a world where we're always on our cell phone, and we've got to work on pulling this head back. And I'll tell you, I've been doing this for over 8 years, and I've seen some of the worst spines ever come into my office. And in the process that we have with the warming the spine, the adjusting the spine based off of the x-rays, and the rehabilitation of the spine is really the only system that I know that can change this and actually create and break those harmful neuroplastic pathways. So, as I wrap up here, let me just recap, right? So number one, we've got to begin to manage our stress. We've got to begin to take ourselves out of that sympathetic fight or flight response. And like I always say on my radio show, we've got to begin to put the tiger that's chasing after us back into the cage, so that way we can enjoy our workouts. It doesn't become a job, it becomes an enjoying process. We also got to listen to our body. The best doctor lives inside of you. It's not, anywhere else. I mean, listen to your body. Your body's very smart. Some stress coping techniques is to make sure you get proper sleep. I mean, if you're not getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep, it's hard for your body to recover, your tissues to recover. I always like to tell people I don't really take a day off. Like even my days off, I'm not lifting super heavy. I'm still doing something physically active, and I'm moving because it's good for my brain, and your brain needs motion. Get some blue light blockers, turn off Facebook, turn off some of the social media, and kind of get yourself out of that fight or flight response so you can begin to have a nice restful night's sleep. Number two is you've got to eat quality, nutrient dense food. We talked about fat being, one of the main nutrients that's missing from most people's diets, and really is one of the big things that creates this anti-inflammatory response. We've got to move well, right? So, the heck with trying to go to the gym and trying to get big muscles and trying to break records, but if you don't move well, right, you're not being very efficient. And like I said, it's got to be about health, not performance. And then, we got to think about toxicity and minimizing what it is that we're putting into our body after a workout. And so, and then, the last thing is chiropractic. Like, what does chiropractic have to do? What does the spine have to do with you being able to move well as a human? And so, as I wrap up here, like I always like to give people an opportunity. Like, I'm just here to bless you and to be a blessing to, wherever you're at in life. Like if you're like that person who's like, oh my gosh, Dr. B, my head's 6 feet in front of my body. I've got all these issues. Nobody's been able to help me. I love that patient. You can call our office right now, 614-781-8808. I believe there's a link you can click as well and actually schedule a new patient appointment. Anybody who listens to this, I'm going to give you 60% off your first visit, which would include like all your postural scans, your x-rays, your case history. If you're that person who's just like, look, Dr. B, I have questions. Like I'm really not ready for chiropractic right now, but I would like to have more information on nutrition, detoxification, supplementation. That's fine. Now there's also a link for you to click, and you can schedule a 15-minute free phone consultation with one of our doctors, right? And we're going to walk you through, like, look at your case history. What are some injuries that you've had? What's your diet look like? I mean, there's only so much we can get done in 15 minutes, but we'll do our best. And also, don't forget to click the link at the bottom and get your free nutrition handout. Listen, it's a simple nutrition handout. But I'll tell you, if you look at that list, those are all the things that you should be consuming on a regular basis. Like if there's anything outside of that, really, the human being doesn't need it, right? And so there's a shopping list. You can use that for really whatever as a guide. But if you want to know the exact amount of macronutrients and things like that you would get from those, that's where that 15-minute phone consult will come in. So, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions for us whatsoever, make sure you let us know. Until I see you or meet you, hopefully, I pray you and your family have a healthy, happy, blessed day. Bye-bye.